everybody. So for this week's lesson and project, I want to start us off by talking about a person in a community that is an advocate for change, an activist and an artist that we're going to be inspired by this week. Her name is Kate Deccicio. So like I said, she's an artist. She's also an educator, and she's what we can call a creative strategist. All right, so Kate Deccicio is an artist, educator, and cultural strategist, as we just mentioned, but she is also from Massachusetts and was raised on her fourth generation farm. Kate's inspiration comes from being an 11th generation born from colonizers. Her intention is to repair harm from her inherited legacy. She wants to do this by centering our civilization's collective imagination, shining the light on counter narratives, community storytelling, and cultural strategies that aim for liberation through abolition. So we're going to talk about what motivates her. So Kate Deccicio is mostly a portrait artist. Portraits are kind of her thing that she's known for. But most importantly, what motivates her is connection. She wants her work to make people feel seen, heard, and validated. She wants to when people look at her, she wants them to feel called into action and to fight for equity that she's so passionate about as well. Some important things that Kate has done and some recognition for Kate is that Kate believes that there is a power that lies behind portraiture. There's a reason why she does it, not just because people look pretty. But she believes that a portrait has an ability to tell a story. She especially focuses on telling the stories of minorities, those who are historically oppressed or silenced in a society, and that's what counter narratives are. Counter narratives are stories of minorities, oppressed communities, or silenced people inside of a society. Her work in storytelling and representing these counter narratives got her commissioned by the Amplifier Foundation. And this is an organization that's committed to highlighting the most important movements happening in our present culture. She also did commission work for Poets in Revolt, which is a book. Poets in Revolt features a new wave of writers using their written voices to speak on the issues they have faced, overcome, and witnessed. So Kate's contributions can be seen inside this book. They're bright and colorful portraits of the featured poets. Kate's other passion is abolition. This is the work that's centered around repairing harm caused by colonization, slavery, and incarceration. So through her work that's centered around abolition, her goal is to heal the collective creativity and imagination of society. She also wants to use this to confront systemic powers that reinforce white supremacy in our culture. So as an educator, she values working with the children in the community that she's involved with. She believes that the key to this is centering lived experiences, valuing diversity amongst her students and the community. And through these principles, she hopes to encourage community-guided ideas and to honor them and uplift the community while recognizing the trauma faced by individuals in the community and the trauma faced by the community at large. So on these next slides, we're going to see some examples of the work I mentioned that she was commissioned to do. And we can kind of talk. I want you guys to kind of, we're going to have open discussion here for a few minutes. And I want us to kind of mention little things that we see in some of these images that might have a cultural or significant or historical meaning inside of them. So in the first picture, it says, "We the future write our own liberation." And I think the key to this image is on the cover of the book. It says, "The tyrant fears the poet." And some things we can kind of see in the second one. It says, "We the future will not be banned." I can kind of we can use this image to call out the history in Israel and Palestine, because we can notice in the background all the tents and stuff. And then in this third picture, I think a lot of the subliminal imagery comes in. It says, "We the future are creating disability justice," and the person in the portrait can be seen wearing a t-shirt that says "Disabled and Proud." And so same thing for the second one. We can kind of call out imagery in these and have like a discussion and kind of see the differences in between them. So in the first one, we've got the bird, and we've got the trees in the back that can kind of symbolize this person's culture, national um, geography, like where they're from. And in the second one, we can kind of realize like the difference between this one and the other two is that there's more than one person in this. And I think that this one could be having a larger story being told about activism and revolutions and like riots and protests and stuff. And then the third one, again, we just have a single person presented. But again, I think we can use the images in the background and the flowers to kind of call out where this person's from, and where like these kind of things might represent their culture as well. Okay, so you might be thinking like, well, what about me? What can I do? Like, how can I use the art and things like that, like Kate Deccicio, how can I use art to tell these kind of stories? And especially when it comes to our project this week, I want you guys to think about like, what is your identity? Ask yourself these questions. What's my identity? What's my culture? What are the smaller aspects of myself that make me me? Then I also want you guys to ask yourselves, keep these questions in mind when you're coming up and brainstorming for your project this week. Ask yourselves, what adversities have I faced related to my identities? What are my lived experiences and how do I feel about that? You might have a very positive outlook on the things that you face, or you might have a very negative or strifeful outlook on the things that you've come through. So what do you have to say about that? And to kind of like go off of that, I'm going to talk to you guys about creative strategy, because Kate Deccicio has a very kind of like, some of her work, the portraiture is portraiture, but she also, as you see on this slide, has other work that looks more like mural work or graffiti work or things like that. It's very interesting. She has a lot of different components to her style. So I'm going to talk to you guys about Kate Deccicio's recommended creative strategy, which are methods that combine cultural experiences, like I've talked to you guys about, in order to create an impact and provoke critical thinking through that art piece. So some of the concepts of her creative strategy, and I'll go through them and tell you guys about each of them as well. So one of them is transformative strategy. So transformative strategy is when you take an existing object or image and change its size. You transform it. You could change its size, its style, its mode, the code, the language, or you can recreate it in surprising new materials. So you could see like a chair and build toothpicks. That's new material, but that it can be used as a way to tell your story or create interesting visuals. Combinatory strategies, so you can mix or replace parts, styles, or mediums. So you don't have to, like, if you want to paint, you don't just have to paint on your project. You can draw on top of it. You can glue stuff to it. You can collage. You can mix it all together. You can take rocks or sticks from outside and glue that to your painting on top to create interesting visuals and textures. You can also compare or juxtapose subject matter, be thinking of all that kind of stuff. It doesn't have to just be a portrait. And at the end of the project, I want you guys to try to not just do a portrait, but also use kind of other things that we're going to talk about. You can also use associative strategies. So you can do this by using materials or mediums that can represent a story or create metaphors that tell that story. So you can think about, and this isn't necessarily like a specific call out that I want you guys to make, but if you're from like Japanese or Chinese culture and you wanted to use, there's like that style where they take broken ceramics and glue them back together, or solder them back together with the gold. You could use that kind of inspiration in your picture to tell the story of your heritage and your culture. It would be so you don't have to necessarily do that, but that is a really good example of something or a medium you can use to tell the story of your culture. You can use juxtaposition strategies, and juxtapose just means to use opposite or clashing subjects. So two things that you wouldn't normally see together kind of create an visually interesting thing. Like they say, like, if you're wearing plaid, you don't want to wear like polka dot pants. You don't want to wear too much pattern. But if I wanted to juxtapose my outfit for the day, I could wear a checkered shirt and striped pants, and that would be clashing, but it would stand out and create an interesting visual because it's juxtaposed. You can recontextualize by collaging, assembling, layering, or appropriate. Appropriate, like as a verb, would mean to use an existing image and draw on top of it. So you could take a picture of yourself and glue it onto a canvas and paint on top of that. That would be a really interesting visual as well. You could format in a different way, or an undisciplined or untraditional techniques. So we also have extension strategies, which include taking an image and stretching it beyond its realistic assets into fantasy or irony. And this doesn't necessarily relate to like culture, but if you wanted to like take a picture of yourself and then paint a dragon in the background, you're taking that image and you're putting fantasy or irony or something that's not necessarily realistic into that. And that's going to amplify the features and draw attention. And it's going to elaborate or project the subject matter by centering it in the art piece. There's distillation strategies. So you can use a small part of something that represents the whole. You can map and organize your imagery visually, edit your pieces. You can remove distracting features. You could put distracting features in, or you can use abstract work to simplify your idea and have simple images, shapes, and colors represent the entirety of the story you're telling. Which abstract work usually is just very like bold. It's not a lot of shading. It's not a lot of like finer details. Okay, and so examples I want to show you guys that Kate Deccicio did when she was working with students in the community, which is kind of what I want you guys to draw your inspiration from, because I want us to be doing self-portraits by the end of this week. What we're going to be finishing is going to be self-portraits. It's not. So these are really great examples of what I want you guys to kind of be thinking about, how you're going to use this as inspiration to tell your own story. So some examples here. Some work. So I want to call out this image with the yellow background, because the subject in this image isn't automatically identifiable. You know what I mean? And you don't have to be automatically identifiable in your self-portrait, but I do want it to be inspired by and centered around your experiences, your culture, and your feelings. And we've got words in here and font and stuff, so you guys can do that as well. If there's a certain saying or story or something that you want to put into your work, you can absolutely do that. I don't feel confined that you have to, or that you can't use language to tell the story. Your story does not have to be just told through visuals. And so we have some more examples here. And something I want to call out is in the second one, it's an image of a child. So you don't have to, if you use your picture, it doesn't have to be of what you look like right now. It can be anything. So we can use these as really good examples to inspire us. I just want to like give you guys some examples of what we're going to be working with. And so the parameters, again, I'll reinforce some of them and kind of give you guys some new information. So after this presentation, we're going to start brainstorming, and by the end of the lesson, I want us to be turning in our self-portraits. So you're going to create your own self-portrait that's inspired by the style and the messages of Kate Deccicio. You guys can use any medium. You can mix mediums. You can use any style: graphic, realistic, sketch, collage, photography. If you're going to do photography, I highly, and I guess I don't insist, but I kind of recommend that you guys print that image out and kind of work on top of it and mix the medium of photography in to kind of create something that's going to be visually storytelling. Okay. So it has to be a self-portrait, but again, you don't have to be strictly identifiable in the project. You could take a picture of yourself and just do a silhouette. It doesn't have to be a picture of you now. It could be of the past, as a kid, as a baby. But the biggest part is I want it to be inspired by your cultures, your identities, your stories, experiences, diversities, and your feelings around those topics of yourself. So today, be thinking about, okay, well, it has to be a portrait, a self-portrait. So we know that has to be on there. What kind of mediums are you interested in playing with? The rest of the class, we're going to be focusing on those things, and kind of also remember to be asking yourself, guys, these questions. What is my identity? What's my culture? What are smaller aspects of myself that make me me? And then ask yourselves, what adversities have I faced related to those identities? What are my lived experiences, and how do I feel about that? What do you have to say? So that is the biggest part on the last perimeter. Is I want you guys for the rest of this period be talking about that. And then so for the rest of this class today, we'll be working on coming up and brainstorming what are the stories we want to tell, what kind of mediums are we interested in, what version of myself do I want to put into this, young me, new me, old me, what do you guys think? And then tomorrow we'll start working on getting those mediums collected and everything. But yeah, guys, so I just want to call out some of the resources if any of you guys want to go to her website and look at more of her work. That's completely fine. Also, all the images on this, except for this one little butterfly that was part of the presentation, all of these artworks were sourced directly from Kate Deccicio's website, and most of them are her work, where it's the work that she did with the communities and her students and the children she's worked with. So yeah, I can't wait to see you guys do.